My pilot's son called. Impossible. She's on my flight. Not at home. The words split the kitchen in two, between the steam curling off my soup and the second-floor hallway where Mia's doctor's orders note hung on the bedroom door. A polite little lie, swaying in the draft from the open window. Daniel. I whispered into the phone, glancing at the ceiling, as if the ceiling could answer me. The clock on the wall ticked like a nervous heart. I don't have much time, Mom. He was trying to keep his voice level, like he does when weather rolls in and passengers grip armrests. She's boarding. Row 7C. She used Amelia Hart. There's a man with her. He didn't say his name. He didn't have to. My ladle stopped mid-air. The soup, tomato basil, dripped back into the pot with soft taps that sounded like footsteps I didn't want to hear. But she's upstairs. I heard my voice crack around the word. I had tucked Emma in an hour ago on the couch with a blanket and a nature documentary. Emma had asked where Mommy was. Sleeping, I had said, stroking her hair. She needs rest for the baby. It had felt like a kindness, that lie. Or maybe it had been laziness. It's hard to tell the difference when your hands are full of someone else's crumbs, Mom. Daniel's breath ghosted through the phone. Please don't go up there alone. Wait for me to land. This is. I saw her. The manifest. I'm calling you from the crew phone. Captain will kill me if I get caught. I've got to go. There were voices around him, the code of a life I knew only by laundry and the smell of jet fuel on his jackets. And then the line clicked. 1 beat. 2. The clock went on ticking. I set the phone down like it was an egg that might break. I wiped my hands on a dish towel that used to be white for company and had become red for family. Then I climbed the stairs, the hallway rug side under my bare feet. I haven't painted those baseboards in 20 years because the scuffs tell a history. Daniel soccer cleats. The time he scraped by with a guitar case, Mia's high heels when she moved in, click, 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 more decoration than shoes. The kind you wear to be seen in. At the end of the hall, the bedroom door stood half open, that polite little note swinging. Doctor's orders. I pushed the door. The bed was made tight. The pillows, plumped and arranged like the showroom. A glass of water on the nightstand had no lip print. Her robe hung on the chair, belt draped just so. The window was unlatched. April air brought in the city's distant thrum and the lemon tree's tired sweetness. The bathroom light was off. The house was so quiet I could hear that little lemon leaf scratch the sill. Mom. A small voice called from below. Emma, baby, I answered, my breath shaking as it stepped past my lips. Go back to your movie. I'll be right there. On the dresser lay her phone, face down, a soft rectangle of secrets. Next to it, the prenatal vitamins, bottle unopened. The calendar had a smiley face on Friday, doctor. The pen had carved a little trench in the paper, like it wanted to commit. Behind me, floorboards creaked. Paula. Frank's voice floated up, just that right mix of concerned and annoyed that only husbands master. Did something burn? I turned. He was midway up the stairs, tie loosened, sleeves rolled, his briefcase bumping his knee. He'd left for a late client dinner. The dinner had left a wine blush on his cheeks. He smelled of something darker beneath it, a scent I couldn't place and didn't want to. Daniel called, I said, every word carefully set on the shelf. He said Mia's on his flight. Frank blinked. What? That can't. No. He laughed, once, too dry. There are a lot of MIAs, Paula. Maybe he misread. Don't you think? He said, row 7C. He said she used Amelia Hart. I didn't say. He said there's a man. I watched his eyes carefully. I've learned, finally, that eyes tell the truth before mouths do. His jaw tightened. Maybe there's an explanation. He moved past me into the room. He picked up the robe, thumbed the belt, dropped it. She's been under stress. You know what the doctor. I moved to the nightstand and flicked the phone over. Black screen. I pressed the button on its side. Nothing. Dead, by design. Emma thinks her mom is here, I whispered. The floor grinned its old knots up at us. I told her to sleep. You did the right thing, he said, like he was telling a client something hard. We'll sort it out in the morning, Paula. Don't make a fuss tonight. Don't make a fuss. The phrase fluttered like a moth against my ribcage. I looked at his face, that handsome map of lies I'd learned to read only after I was too far into the forest. It hit me how many nights I'd set the table with extra plates for people's excuses that he made for his briefcase on the chair. I beat him to it. No, I said, brighter than a church bell. I smiled. Let's sort it out now. The latch clicked, and the black leather mouth opened. Papers. A passport. A thick manila envelope stamped Merit Consult. I'd seen that name once in our mailbox, a stray envelope marked, investment. I dropped it on Frank's desk without curiosity. The way you set aside a stone you tripped on, this is work, Frank said. His hand hovered over mine, then withdrew when he saw my jaw set. He knows that jaw. It's the same one I used when I caught him with a work friend 3 summers ago, texts, late-night calls, the misunderstanding that lasted 6 months. We can do honesty or we can do police, I said. My voice surprised me with how calm it sounded. There are levels of rage. The one they never teach men is quiet. In the envelope, bank statements. Wire transfers, neat and unapologetic. 50,000 to Merit Consult. 75. Then a wire out to Napoli Banca, new account, C. Merrick. An attached post-it with Frank's messy scrawl, Friday final, wife sign? Need POA. Wife. That simple, old-fashioned knife. A smaller envelope slid out and danced across the floor to my feet. I bent and opened it. A hotel confirmation, Hotel Vesuvio. Naples. 2 guests. Reservations under, Frank Hale and Amelia Hart. My name is Paula Hart. It felt like someone had copied me black and white. Cut out the heart, and pasted it to a stranger. The body knows things before the mind says the words. I felt my stomach drop as if the staircase had given out. The air went thin. Suddenly every sound was sharp, the clock downstairs, the documentary narrator murmuring in the living room, Emma's small laugh at a penguin slipping on ice. My granddaughter's innocence, squawking happily at a fall, something else, too. A phone, an older ring, muffled. In the desk. I walked there. Frank's breath changed behind me, the way it did when he'd wake before the alarm and pretend to be asleep. I pulled the drawer. Nothing. I pressed, false bottom. A trick a boy learns the first time his father hides cigarettes and he wants to impress his mother. I lifted the panel, the burner phone was warm. It buzzed in my hand. On the screen, a message bloomed, Gate B6. Naples tomorrow. Can't wait to not pretend anymore. Don't forget the POA, F, M. I read it twice. Mia behind me, Frank finally spoke. Paula, let me, save it. My voice sounded sturdy, someone else's but rented to me for the night. Go downstairs. Heat your own dinner. You can't mean to, Frank. I turned, and whatever he saw in my face, he took a half step back. Go. Now. He went. He takes orders well when he remembers that I can give them. I picked up the phone again. My hands didn't shake. The phone held more, threads strewn with cheap romance and expensive plans. I took pictures. I sent them to my email, to Daniel. Then I set the phone down carefully, back into the drawer, false bottom closed, everything the same as before to a man who never paid attention to the way he left rooms. Emma's voice drifted up. Nana? Are penguins happy? I pressed my hand to the wall, steadying. Yes, baby, I called. Penguins are very happy. They always find their way back to the ones they love. I wish you could have seen me then, an old house creaking in a storm, choosing not to collapse. Women my age, we build muscles invisible to men. They notice our hands only when we stop carrying. I took a breath. I sent Daniel a final message, I have the proof. Stay safe. Buckle up, because the plane wasn't the only thing heading into turbulence. Morning light can be cruel. It came in pale and indifferent while the soup still sat cold and fat in the pot. I don't like to waste, so I ladled it into containers and stacked them in the freezer while my heart was elsewhere. That's motherhood in a sentence. Feeding while bleeding. Daniel texted pictures from a quiet corner between flights, the manifest listing Amelia Hart. Seat 7C. A blurry photo from a gate camera someone in security had accidentally sent him, Mia in a camel coat. Sunglasses on her head, laughing at something the man beside her said. The man was all angles. He carried himself like money. I forwarded everything to Nadia. Everyone needs a friend like Nadia. We met in a church basement 15 years ago at a grief support group. She brought bitter coffee and I brought lemon bars and we both brought sorrow. Now she's an attorney with a smile like a lighthouse. Her call came before 9. You're not crazy, she said, skipping hello. Good friends know what to skip. You're also not alone. We're going to booby-trap the house. Financially. Legally. Emotionally too, but that's later. We made a list. It was long. It's always longer than you expect. Freeze the joint account. Move the house into a living trust with Emma as beneficiary. I had the right, it's my name on the deed. Not Frank's. Revoke the power of attorney I hadn't remembered signing, just in case, 4 years ago. One of those rainy day papers husbands slide into little piles of, we'll sign quickly before dinner. Contact the bank about suspicious wires. Document everything. You'll need a witness for your trust, Nadia said. 2, actually. Do you have anyone who won't faint? Tessa, I said, against my better judgment. If you live long enough in a neighborhood, the woman who used to be your rival for the PDA bake sale becomes your ally at the courthouse. Tessa had a gossip's talent for details and a widow's compassion. Emma was coloring on the table with a seriousness that made my throat hurt. Will mommy be back for the baby? She asked, blue pencil moving. In time, I said, because hope can be a tool or a weapon, and sometimes you don't know which until later. But you and I are going to have a special girls' week. Pancakes for dinner and everything. She smiled, missing front teeth, joy punctured and still flopping around. I kissed the ink stain on her cheek. Frank had left early, briefcase in hand, his mouth align. He kissed the air near my temple. Client emergency, he said, and I nodded. Because if I began to count the emergencies Frank had invented to leave me alone with the actual emergency of living, I'd never stop. While he was out, I opened his desk again. You learn a person by their mess. Frank's mess told me he liked to keep detonators close. The burner phone was still there. He hadn't looked. He trusted me not to look. Trust is a strange word. People use it like a leash or a dare. I scrolled through to March. There they were, the first message from Mia, coy. Frank answering with care. The slide into plane. He thinks this bed rest is real, she wrote. Your wife believes everything you do, he wrote back. That house is too big for her anyway. We can make something smaller. New. Clean. There were emoji that made my skin crawl. I took more photos. I CC'd Nadia. I CC'd my own sense of self-respect. Then I closed the drawer again, and I went to the notary. The woman at the UPS store had pink hair and eyes like a cop. She watched me sign and asked, "You okay?" "No," I said, smiling with half my face. "But I'm brave." She bumped my elbow as she stamped. "That works too." By noon, the house was protected by a trust. By 1, the joint account was frozen and my own was fed. By 2, a restraining order sat in my email half-filled, a contingency, folded in my heart like a napkin. By 3, I had told Tessa everything. She whistled low. "I told you I saw her with that man. Camel coat. I don't miss a coat." I wanted to believe she was shopping for a baby blanket, I admitted. It's astonishing the shapes hope contorts itself into. Tessa squeezed my hand. "We're not our mothers," she said. "We don't have to just swallow." I thought of my mother's silence, the way she wore it like a coat herself. I thought of the cousin who said, "Men wander, that's their temperament," as if women were dogs on a porch waiting for the truck to return. "No," I said softly. "We don't have to. Plan in motion, we needed a performance. Revenge isn't screaming in the yard, much as I wanted the relief. It's choreography. It's calling the song and letting everyone play their part until the wrong dancers realize the lights are on them. I took Frank's burner phone and wrote, very simply, bank delay. We'll need you both here, Sunday 3 p.m., to finish the deed paperwork with the notary. She'll only sign if you're present, M. Do not be late. I knew Mia's tells. She liked to be dramatic, but she liked money more. This would bring them back into my house, the one they were trying to hollow out. They could sign what they thought would give them power. And I'd asked them to sign something else. Saturday night, Daniel came home. He looked 10 years older and 5 years younger at once. I made him sit, made him eat, made him cry. That last one is an art people think mothers immediately know. We don't. We learn where to put our hand on a grown man's shoulder so he folds without feeling less. "I can't believe I didn't see it," he kept saying, as if sight was love's first cousin. She was. We were picking out names. We were. I thought. "I know," I said, because I had thought too, and my thoughts had been turned against me like kitchen knives. I held his hand and told him this was not a failure of his character but of hers. "She chose a man who promised her shortcuts," I said. "You chose to build a life plank by plank. That difference is everything." He nodded, eyes rimmed red. "What will we do?" "We'll be elegant," I said. "We'll be exact." We'll keep our tempers cool and our receipts hot. He laughed, wet and short. You sound like a pilot talking to a storm. I sound like your mother, I corrected, brushing his hair back like he was still 12. I'm done being nice. I'm done apologizing for seeing what I see. Sunday came heavy, a bruise of a day. I baked a lemon cake because spite tastes better airborne and sugar buys quiet. I set the table. I put flowers not on the table but on the mantel, out of reach of hands that would grab at pretty things and break them. Tessa arrived 5 minutes early with lipstick that could kill and a notebook. Nadia tucked her hair behind her ears and laid out folders on the coffee table, a trust document, a statement of false representation to sign, a printed stack of messages with names redacted for decency's sake that I intended to read anyway. Emma was at her friend Ava's. A playdate I had arranged like a general moves troops, precise and kind. Daniel stood in the doorway, square, a pilot waiting at the cockpit door, authority glued on. AT-302, the doorbell rang. The chime echoed through the house like it always does, sweet and oblivious. I smoothed my skirt. I lifted my chin. Let them in, I told my son. It's time to see who we are when the lights are on. I still remember the first time I met Mia. She brought daisies and said, "Thank you for raising the man I love." She pinched Daniel's arm and he grinned. It was so easy to believe in daisies. They look like honesty. That's the trouble with pretty things. They hide the dirt that feeds them. Now she stood on my porch in a camel coat, sunglasses in her hair again. Frank stood behind her, his hand on the small of her back. That touch froze me more than if he'd slapped me. Intimacy flaunted is worse than intimacy hidden. One is shame and the other is sport, Paula. Mia sang, as if she was the daughter I'd never had and not the woman who had sold my life for a dream with a hotel minibar. We made it just in time. Did you get my text? Gate delays, you know how it is. She winked, ignorance sheathed like a knife. Frank, I said, ignoring the lipstick on his collar that wasn't mine. Come in. We didn't kiss, any of us. The air didn't allow it. They stepped into my home and paused as if it would rearrange itself to comfort them. It did not. The house has loyalties. We sat. Tessa crossed her legs and looked like a jury. Nadia arranged papers and smiled her lighthouse smile. Daniel didn't sit. He stood with his hands behind his back like he was bracing against turbulence. And Mia flicked her hair. So, she said brightly, where's the notary? We're on a schedule. She is, Nadia said, her tone neutral, her eyes not. I'm Nadia. Licensed. Bonded. Very patient. Mia blinked. Great. So let's get this power of attorney. Oh, I'm sorry, I cut in, polite as a scalpel. There's been a small change. We won't be doing the power of attorney. Frank's head snapped like a dog who heard his name after a long time. Paula, we won't, I repeated, and my voice was the quietest thing in the room. I revoked it. And I moved the house into a trust for Emma. Silence. You could hear the lemon cake settling on the sideboard. Mia's smile flickered, went off, tried to reboot. You, what? Her eyes darted to Frank, only for a second, but enough. This is outrageous, Frank said, finding his footing on his old friend, a bluff. You can't just, I can, I said. And I did. And since you are so concerned about legality, here. I slid a folder across the coffee table. Inside, printouts of texts, bank statements, the hotel confirmation. I made copies, I said sweetly, because I am my mother's daughter when I want to be. For you. For HR at your firm, Frank. For Mia's licensure board, if her influencers have one. For the police, if we go that way. I haven't decided. Mia put a hand to her throat, as if a necklace had gone missing. Paula, this is... It's not what it looks like. I leaned in. Let me help you with what it looks like, I said, and I let the grandmother voice come out, the one that can both soothe scraped knees and keep a child from running into the street. It looks like you faked bed rest to meet a man in Naples with my husband. It looks like you plan to use a power of attorney to sell this house. It looks like you took my son's last name and tried to empty it like a pocket. It looks like you enjoyed being the center of gravity in a house you did not build. Frank started to talk, but Daniel stepped forward. You don't say one word to my mother, he said, the flight deck in his stance, coiled, dignified. He swallowed. You lied to me. You made me talk to the baby you weren't carrying. His voice broke, then steadied. The only person you both spoke the truth to was each other. Mia's eyes went glassy, the way a deer's do when headlights hit and the body forgets it can move. Daniel, I am speaking, he said softly, and she shut up. The mercy in him made me proud and angrier than any curse could. Tessa coughed a laugh into her fist and then sat up straighter, chastened by Nadia's glance. We weren't here for theatricality. We were here for choreography. Here's what will happen, Nadia said, sliding another document out. You will sign this statement acknowledging you knowingly attempted to procure a fraud, to use a power of attorney to sell Ms. Hart's house without her informed consent. You will agree to return the funds wired to Merrick Consult within 10 business days. You will vacate this house today. Should you fail to comply, Ms. Hart will proceed with criminal charges and a civil suit for damages. We have sufficient evidence. She smiled, but there was nothing gentle in it. We don't bluff. Frank's face went red then white. I won't, you will, I said, meeting his eyes and holding them the way I'd held him steady after his first heart murmur. Or you will go to jail, and I will bring my granddaughter to visit you once so she knows your face belongs to a story about consequences. You wouldn't, he said. Like a line he'd practiced in a mirror. I would, I said. And when you are old and there is no one left to remember you kindly, I will go out to my lemon tree and pick a fruit that never sweetens and think of you. He flinched. That's the thing with men who lie. They expect you to want to be liked more than you want to be safe. Mia reached for a pen, then paused. What about me? She asked small, like the child she played so often. I don't have anywhere. You have choices, I said. You can stay and sign and leave with your clothes and your face intact. Or you can stay and not sign and leave with police. I don't have another option for you. I watched her measure her situation against her reflection in the window. She chose the pen. She bent and signed, hand shaking. Frank held out longer. He tried a dozen little tactics that used to work: charm, anger, pity, logic twisted so tightly it squealed. I watched them all and felt nothing for him but a dull ache, the ghost pain of an amputated limb. Then he signed too, because the truth is, men like Frank love money more than pride. When the last signature bled into the paper, the room changed shape. Relief doesn't come like fireworks. It comes like fog lifting, slowly, revealing the same trees with more light. Keys, Nadia said softly. Frank put them on the table one by one: the house, the garage, the office. The sound they made felt like closing a chapter. Mia stood and looked at Daniel. I did love you, she said, tears coming at last, a storm too late to water anything meaningful. I didn't want to be small. Daniel nodded once, the way you nod to a passenger who says nonsense when the plane is landing and all you hear is the need in their voice. You are as big as your choices, he said. You chose yourself, and you didn't leave room for anyone else. That's not size. That's emptiness. She flinched. She picked up her bag. Frank hovered, wanting to say something that would make me hold out a hand and soften. I kept my hands in my lap. They left. It was not dramatic. The door closed. The house stood. I exhaled and didn't know I'd been holding my breath a week. Tessa made a noise like triumph and tears. Nadia exhaled. Daniel sat and put his face in his hands. I went to him. He leaned into me like when he was small and had scraped both knees and his pride out. We spent the evening quietly, which is not something YouTube will tell you about justice. It isn't loud. It's the way soup tastes when you can swallow again. It's the sound of the dishwasher. It's a lemon cake that you eat with your fingers at midnight with your son, laughing for the first time in days. The next morning, I changed the locks. I walked the perimeter like a farmer checks fences after a storm. I dug a small hole by the lemon tree and put in a ceramic shard a friend had given me with the word "return" painted on it. I am not mystical, but I like the idea that the ground remembers what we ask of it. Then life went on. It does, obstinate as a weed and as strong as an oak. Frank lost his job. HR doesn't like client emergencies to be code for fraud. Mia moved to a studio across town and then, I heard, out of state, where I swear I wish her well in the thin way you wish your ex good weather on their move. We pursued the return of the money. When people ask what justice looks like, I say, Western Union receipts and the dull satisfaction of a wire reversal blinking into your account. Emma asked about the baby. Mommy's not having one, we told her gently, and she cried in that deep, round way children mourn things they conjured safe in their minds. We cried with her. We planted a marigold. It flowered fast and bright and then died properly when the season turned, and I liked the honesty of that. Daniel went back to flying. The first time I heard his voice over the phone from a hotel room in a city I've never been to, his laugh was lighter. How are you, Mom? He asked, and I told him the truth. I am proud of us. On the anniversary of the day the house became ours again, we sat out on the back steps and watched planes cut white commas into the sky. That lemon tree still doesn't sweeten, Daniel said, making a face as he bit into a wedge like a dare. Some things don't, I said. They teach you to love them for other reasons. Like? Like shade, I said. And color. And the reminder that you have taste buds that work. He laughed. He looked sideways at me. You were scary on Sunday. I was overdue, I said. I spent years being nice when I meant no. I decided I wouldn't anymore. It turns out, that makes you look scary to people who expected you to be convenient. He stood, stretched, and the sun slipped and caught him in a way that made him look every age he'd ever been. I'm proud of you too, Mom, he said. The phone buzzed. Message from Frank. Weeks had gone by with nothing, and then there it was. I saw his name and waited to see what would rise in me. Not rage. Not longing. Not much. He had sent a photo of a lemon, on a branch, yellow like a promise, and 3 words, I am sorry. I typed back 2 words, I know. Then I put the phone down and went inside. There was a sink to wash, and a girl to pick up from school, and a cake to bake just because. Everyday justice. It looks like a clean counter and people who come home because they want to, not because they're trapped. You want a cinematic end? Here, a week later, I was on a flight Daniel was piloting. I'd sworn off airplanes after Michael died. You know how grief stitches itself to unrelated fears and refuses to unpick, but my son asked me, and I said yes. The plane lifted, heavy and graceful, like a woman getting out of bed after a year she thought might swallow her. At cruising altitude, he got on the PA and said, "Good afternoon, folks. From the flight deck, this is Captain Hart. We're in good hands." He wasn't just talking about the plane. Or maybe he was. Maybe he meant me, this house, our family with seams mended and ugly, strong stitches. When the wheels hit the runway, that beautiful bottomless drop into certainty, my heart leapt like it had remembered a rhythm. The passengers clapped. Because some of us still do, and I did too. Because sometimes the obvious displays of gratitude are the only ones truly worth performing. On the way out, he stood at the cockpit door like he does. And when I reached him, he squeezed my hand, once, hard. Cleared for takeoff, he whispered, and it made me laugh like a girl again. Cleared for landing, I whispered back. We made it. There are things you can forgive, and things you can release. I've learned you don't owe anyone your home for the price of their comfort. If you're listening to me and you feel that knot in your gut, the one that tells you something is wrong while the smiles around you insist everything is fine, trust the knot. It is your lighthouse. It will get you back to shore. Some nights I sit under the lemon tree and let the sour scent fill the air. Emma plays with paper airplanes, and we send them into the twilight like wishes at a fountain. They fall at our feet or float beyond the fence. Either way, we laugh, and sometimes, if the breeze is right, and if you tilt your ear toward the sky, you can hear the low thrum of a plane overhead. My son's voice carrying, steady as a prayer, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be just fine. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story.